At number 10, we have Daniel Kim and Grace Park, who acted in the rebooted CBS action crime drama series Hawaii Five-0 from the start of 2010. For 7 long years, the duo played their characters Chin Ho Kelly and Konu Kolokoa until they were forced off the show in 2017 because of a contract dispute. Reportedly, Daniel and Grace were both looking to receive equal pay that their co-stars Alex O'Loughlin and Scott Conn were obtaining. It was stated that CBS would not waver their final decision and set a disclosed amount of 10 to 15% lower pay grade than their castmates. Eventually, CBS went on to write Daniel and Grace out of their show in the 8th season, and in it their removal was addressed in true drama show fashion during the premiere. Funnily enough though, it's said that the drama off-screen was even juicier. Despite the network issuing glowing statements in regards to their departed stars, Grace was all but thrilled when Peter Lenkov, her former showrunner, released a tweet with indications that Grace had left the series to focus on family. Grace detailed the occurrence by explaining how the situation felt very charged to her, as well as that she did not feel it was right of Peter to make a statement on her behalf, regardless of whether or not he had good intentions. She finalized by informing Deadline that she cared about Peter as an individual, but that she did not leave the show because of what he implied. At number 9, we have Valerie Harper's self-titled sitcom where she starred alongside Jason Bateman with high spirits due to the fact that the show's ratings were increasing. Valerie was said to be headed in a promisingly strong direction for its 3rd season, and Harper decided this was as good as any time to inquire about a raise. In accordance with People, by Valerie's 3rd year, she was contracted to receive $56,750 per episode, with an additional 10% of the show's adjusted gross profits. Rather, Valerie requested there be a new contract drawn of $100,000 and 35% of added profits instead. When the studio refused to play into Valerie's demands, she pulled out an old ruse that once worked for her 12 years prior as the star of Rhoda. For this one, her request for a raise was denied. She denied showing up for work until she got what she wanted. However, her holdout tactic was not successful the following time, as Valerie's production team agreed to terms of a new contract worth $65,000 per episode with 12.5% of profits. This is what sparked Valerie's return to set, but she was let go after filming a single episode. As a result, the Valerie writers killed off her character and rebranded the show as Valerie's Family for the 3rd season. The following season, the show got a new name once more called The Hogan Family, and while the sitcom maintained its popularity without its original star, Valerie's karma came in full circle when she successfully sued production on the grounds of wrongful dismissal. At number 8, we have the crazy saga of Marcus Chong and The Matrix. His story comes after the success of The Matrix when the film creators had pitched for a double sequel. The writing/director team of the Wachowskis initially wanted to reprise Marcus with a reported offer of $250,000, but Marcus was seeking a whopping $1 million, a seemingly bizarre negotiation tactic which presumably later backfired and got him removed from the franchise. He was killed off between the first and final movies. Allegedly, after asking for $1 million, Marcus's lawyer delivered an ultimatum to the Wachowskis in a letter. In it, a matching sum of $500,000 with added bonuses and promises to receive press premiere guarantees was offered, or oppositely, Marcus would do the movies for free. Following the latter, Marcus apparently publicly added that he was being threatened and spoke on the behalf of Andy Wachowski on a call, which brought about more drama and confusion. At one point, he was reportedly taken into custody for making threats and later unsuccessfully sued the production company and distributors of The Matrix.
At 7, Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt is famous for her roles in films like A Quiet Place, The Devil Wears Prada, and Mary Poppins, but she could have also been famous for playing Black Widow in the MCU. Emily had secured the role as Natasha Romanoff in the Iron Man sequel, but because of scheduling conflicts with her other production, Jack Black's Gulliver's Travels. I mean, why she would want to give up an MCU production for Gulliver's Travels, I will never know, but to each their own, I guess. Emily said in an interview that she had to drop the Black Widow role for her own sanity, since filming 2 films at the same time would have been very draining on her. But again, I would have chosen the MCU hands down. Either way, Emily's backing out of the production paved the way for Scarlett Johansson to take up the mantle, and I guess it was for the best because honestly, I couldn't imagine anyone else as Black Widow.
At number 6, we have former Family Matter actress Jamie Foxworth. Now, there's no hard confirmation from the cast nor crew as to why Jamie was ever dismissed, but there have been so many rumors stringed from her role's strange removal on the show, where her then character Judy exits a scene up the stairs in season 4 and never never comes back down. According to FM's co-creator William Bickley, Jamie's exit came about because of budget considerations, but many allege that her mother was behind the actress's dismissal. A mysteriously reported BET article hinted that the responsibility should be placed on her mother and then manager Gwen Fox, in light of Jamie's contract not being renewed for demanding more money. The position Gwen held makes the story plausible, but regardless, Jamie's career never fully recovered from the early setback. Still, Jamie has kept a pretty lighthearted and humorous attitude about the entire ordeal.
Number 5. Samantha Morton. She was originally cast in the voice-only role of Samantha, an operation system that falls in love with a lonely divorced man played by Joaquin Phoenix, in the 2013 movie Her. Although the plot itself may sound a little bit crazy, the film sells the central romance beautifully and was very well received by critics, earning a huge 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. Samantha Morton was not only confirmed for the part, but she actually completed all of her character's filming for the movie, only to ultimately lose the role to Scarlett Johansson. So what went wrong? Well, the director Spike Jonze said, quote, "Samantha was with us on set and was amazing. It was only in post-production when we started editing that we realized what the movie needed was different from what Samantha and I had created together. So we recast." Which is kind of sad, but Morton took it all in stride. The British actress told Vanity Fair, "If you listen to my voice and you listen to Scarlett's voice, they're just completely different flowers." And while she was disappointed not to attend the film's premiere, she confirmed that there was no bad feelings whatsoever and was actually thrilled that the project did so well.
At number 4, we have crime scene investigation actors Georgia Fox and George Eads. The two stars of CSI faced intense behind-the-scenes drama while filming the show because they were both eventually removed after allegedly refusing to show up for filming. In accordance with People, both actors were dissatisfied with the results of their proposed raises of approximately $20,000 per episode. When the actors attempted to hold out for more, they got snipped out the equation. CBS's co-president Leslie Moonves made a point to state that a contract is a contract and that the company was maintaining the future of the network television business. Although there is a happier ending for this one, as both Georgia and George were invited to take their jobs back, but their rehire came with some new ground rules. The raises initially offered were revoked, resulting in the actors' negotiation tactics costing them an approximate $1.76 billion. Big yikes. Even worse, George once claimed he wasn't even being petty and that he merely overslept when he didn't show up to work, rather than the hinted monetary gain story that was originally created.
Coming in at number 3, Matthew McConaughey. It's hard to imagine anyone other than Leonardo DiCaprio as Jack Dawson from Titanic, but it almost happened. Matthew McConaughey actually auditioned for the same role, but obviously lost out on it. In an interview, Matthew said that though he thought he had absolutely nailed his audition and that he was a serious contender for the role, saying, quote, "It was one of those auditions where I left and thought I had it," end quote. Apparently, even though he did well at his audition, he said that James Cameron simply liked Leo better. This role is really what made Leo a household name, so imagine if he never got that part. Where would he be? And how would the film have gone differently if Matthew secured the bag instead? Would he have gotten enough room on that door? We may never know. You can tell that I'm really cheesed about that door.
At number 2, we have Walking Dead Maggie's actress Lauren Cohan. Lauren's character was surely a staple in the WD franchise for nearly a decade, but in 2018 AMC had to complicatedly decide to give in to the actress' then contract demands or remove her from her role. In her Entertainment Weekly interview, Lauren admitted that she was taken aback by her negotiation, which indicated that maybe it was time to leave. She recalls being baffled and feeling like it was just not a fit anymore, due to her and AMC not lining up in so many ways. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Lauren was already actively seeking new jobs around this time and was receiving multiple. As a result, she was no longer a part of the Walking Dead series, but the final decision to let her go was unusually a huge departure from that of the comic book series on which the show bases itself, though not entirely unlikely. However, Lauren could potentially see the return of her character Maggie in the future, despite her character being offed, as her ending was technically left up in the air.
Number 10. Rachelle Lefevre. One of the biggest villains of the Twilight Saga was replaced partway through the franchise. Victoria Sutherland, who spends most of the first 2 movies hunting Bella Swan, was originally played by Canadian actress Rachelle Lefevre, but by the 3rd movie Eclipse in 2010, fans noticed that Victoria was being played by an entirely different actress. actress Bryce Dallas Howard. It turns out that there was a lot of drama behind the decision, as Rachelle herself was shocked when she was fired. She told Entertainment Weekly in 2009, quote, "I was stunned by Summit's decision to recast the role of Victoria for Eclipse. I was fully committed to the Twilight Saga and to the portrayal of Victoria. I turned down several other film opportunities and, in accordance with my contractual rights, accepted only roles that would involve very short shooting schedules." She went on to say that Summit dropped her because of a 10-day overlap where she had a scheduling conflict, but the studio was quick to deny this on their part and came out saying that the actress decided not to tell them about her other work commitments until the very last moment. Although it would have been great to see Rachelle as Victoria for the last film, many fans agree that Bryce certainly gave it her all. Number 9. Terrence Howard. The first Iron Man film really ushered in the age of Marvel and paved the way for many iconic superhero movies to come. The 2008 movie launched Robert Downey Jr. into superstar status for playing Tony Stark along with his co-star Terrence Howard, who played Rhodey. But the massive success of the franchise paid off for everyone except Howard, who insisted that he got screwed over after the first movie took off, claiming producers wanted him to take a massive pay cut for the sequel because they believed it would be successful with or without him. Unfortunately, they were right, and Don Cheadle was recast as Tony Stark's right-hand man ever since. It's safe to say that Howard was not happy at all and took it out on Robert Downey Jr. on Watch What Happens Live. Quote, "It turns out that the person I helped become Iron Man, when it was time to re-up for the second time, he took the money that was supposed to go to me and pushed me out." He went on to say that when the studio approached him for the second movie, they told him, "Look, we will pay you 1/8 of what we contractually had for you because we think the second one will be successful with or without you." That was when Howard called Robert Downey Jr. only to be practically ghosted. That was pretty shady, but MCU fans seemed totally fine with the swap, as it was clear that Don Cheadle brought a lot to the character.
At number 7, we have Muppet star Steve Whitmire. Despite there being several reported reasonings for the Kermit the Frog voice actor and puppeteer's axe from Disney, the big deal breaker was supposedly money. Apparently, one of the reasons given for Steve's dismissal was his refusal to work on a specific project because of an alleged contract dispute. However, Steve told The Hollywood Reporter that he was a casualty of a classified contract dispute between AFTRA and Disney Labor Relations. According to THR, Disney and the Muppet Studio, though, Steve's negotiation tactics pushed back production for many years, even going as far back as the Sesame Street days of voicing Ernie and Kermit. A source informed Gizmodo that he was let go for demanding too much money and not for focusing on the Muppets after Sesame Street.
Number 6. Megan Fox. Her role in the first 2 films of the live-action Transformers franchise helped catapult her to a new level of stardom, but she didn't get to stick around for the whole series. The third Transformers film from Michael Bay proved to be a milestone for the franchise and went on to earn more than $1 billion at the box office. And sadly, Megan wasn't a part of it. Her character Michaela was written out and she was instead replaced by Rosie Huntington-Whiteley as Sam's new love interest Carly. It turns out that Megan was fired from Transformers Dark of the Moon during production after she compared Michael Bay to Hitler and called him a nightmare to work with in an interview with Wonderland. From that point on, there were conflicting reports over whose decision it was and why it was made, but it wasn't until 2011 that Bay confessed that it was actually Steven Spielberg who told him to fire her after she made those controversial comments. In fact, after she was fired from Dark of the Moon, Megan stopped appearing in bigger movies altogether, but has since repaired her relationship with Bay and even went on to star in 2 of his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies.
Halfway through at number 5, Emma Watson. Another star who lost out on a major role because of conflict issues is Emma Watson. Watson was originally supposed to play Mia in La La Land but had to back out because of conflicts with her other production, Beauty and the Beast. She shared that for her role as Belle in the live-action Disney remake, she had a lot of preparations to do for the role. She had horse training, dance lessons, and voice lessons to do, so her schedule was already pretty packed. And since her role in La La Land was also a musical and would involve singing and dancing, her training would have pretty much been doubled in that same time frame. So I mean, I can fully understand why you would make the decision to drop one of the films. And on top of that, it must not have been a very easy decision. Both films were very successful, but Emma Stone took up the mantle as Mia in La La Land over Watson, and the film landed Stone an Academy Award for Best Actress. Either way, Watson got to star in a musical, and to me, I see this as an absolute win. If you know that meme. I like you.
Number 4, Johnny Depp. The Pirates of the Caribbean actor played the villain in 2 of the previous Fantastic Beasts movies, but Johnny Depp was actually fired from the 3rd installment of the franchise, The Secrets of Dumbledore, and replaced by Danish actor Mads Mikkelsen. So what happened? Well, in November of 2020, Depp revealed via social media that Warner Brothers had asked him to exit the franchise after filming only 1 scene. The reason being is that his legal battle with his ex-wife Amber Heard had gone viral and he had just lost his libel case against The Sun after the publication called him a wife beater. In general, 2020 was a terrible year for Depp as the public really started to turn against him and the studio felt it would greatly affect their sales to keep him in the film. So the role of Gellert Grindelwald was henceforth played by Casino Royale star Mikkelsen. The funny thing is that Depp still walked away with his $16 million salary thanks to a pay-or-play contract, so Warner Brothers was stuck footing the bill either way, and the studio's decision to cut him out of the movie didn't even pay off, considering that the 3rd film ended up performing even worse at the box office than the first 2.
At number 3, we have iconic Disney star Hilary Duff, who was a staple for all early 2000s preteens with her crimped hair and then sweet style. The reason why Hilary and Paulo's Lizzie McGuire 2 manifestation didn't play out in real life was because of reported money disputes. Without Hilary, there would surely be no Lizzie, and apparently Hilary wanted more than what she was making then. According to Entertainment Weekly, the LM franchise closed off when Susan Duff, Hilary's then momager, refused Disney's deal for a sequel. Reportedly, Hilary was offered $500,000 in bonus for the second film if the first film surpassed $50 million. This was said to be a huge increase from the $100,000 bonus Disney originally offered the pair, along with part of a $4 million offer for its sequel, quote, against 4% of the studio's gross for the film. In full, Hilary's Lizzie payday exceeded this, but her mother expected the bonus to come immediately as opposed to waiting. In retaliation, Disney withdrew their deal completely while effectively axing the Lizzie McGuire franchise. In light of the incident, Susan said to Entertainment Weekly how Disney tried to, quote, bully them into what they wanted and was unsuccessful. So in turn, she and her daughter turned away from a sequel while the company ditched an entire series.
Number 2, James Remar. Director James Cameron's movie Aliens originally cast James Remar as Hicks, but the sequel replaced the troubled star all because of his on-set behavior. When Aliens began production, James had the role of Corporal Hicks and had a darker take on the role. However, several unfortunate incidents resulted in the actor eventually being replaced by Michael Biehn after about a month or so of filming. The reason being is that James was reportedly very difficult on set, including a time when he allegedly brought live ammunition on set and blew a hole in a neighboring set that was for the Little Shop of Horrors. But the decision to remove James was final after he was busted for possession. Unfortunately for the filmmakers, some of Hicks' scenes had already been shot, resulting in reshoots and clever editing to insert Michael as a replacement take on the role. Yet this was all kept a secret for years from fans and the crew of Aliens, as all they knew was that James was simply gone one day without explanation, with Michael standing in his place. And coming in at number 1, Eric Stoltz. Right from the beginning, the filmmakers behind Back to the Future wanted to cast Michael J. Fox in the lead role of Marty McFly. The only problem was that Michael was tied up with shooting his hit TV show Family Ties, which was a massive scheduling conflict. So they went with Eric Stoltz instead. It would have been a life-changing role for the youngster, but according to IndieWire, director Robert Zemeckis and producer Steven Spielberg realized weeks into production that Eric wasn't getting many laughs in the rough cuts of the film. So in a series of really awkward maneuvers, they came up with a plan to fire him and bring in their original choice in order to save the film. But according to the 2015 book We Don't Need Roads, the making of the Back to the Future trilogy, it explains that Eric also had some pretty demanding on-set behavior and allegedly required everyone on set to refer to him as Marty. In fact, the book alleges that by the time he was fired, some of the cast and crew members actually seemed relieved. Whatever the case, recasting Eric ultimately proved to be a really good business decision, considering that the film went on to gross over $200 million.
Starting us off at number 10, Josh Hutcherson. I'm sure we are all familiar with Andrew Garfield's role as Peter Parker in the Amazing Spider-Man films, but Andrew wasn't the only strong contender for the role. Josh Hutcherson was also being considered for the role, but obviously it went to Andrew in the end. Josh was so close to getting the part that he even made a demo reel for the role, and he made a pretty good Spider-Man in my opinion. Even though he didn't get the part in The Amazing Spider-Man the first time, he was considered again for the role as Peter Parker in the MCU Spider-Man reboot, but again lost the role to Tom Holland. Seems like he's losing to a lot of Brits here. For Josh, even though he lost out on the role twice, there's no hard feelings since he got so much success from the Hunger Games franchise. But imagine Peter swinging through trees like Spider-Man instead of burying himself in the mud like a weirdo. At number 9, Gwyneth Paltrow. The 1997 film Titanic was a box office hit. It made over $2 billion at the box office and won a butt ton of awards as well. It's a classic film and I'm pretty sure that everyone and their mother has seen it. Kate Winslet, who played Rose in the film, was nominated for an Academy Award for her role, and it brought her a lot of success. But Kate wasn't the top pick for the film's cast in the beginning. Turns out the studio had offered Gwyneth Paltrow the coveted role and she actually turned it down. She was one of the last 2 actresses considered for the part and she turned it down, leaving it to Kate. Even though she was successful in later movies like Shakespeare in Love in '99, for which she won an Academy Award, she could have had a very different career path had she taken the role in Titanic. Even Gwyneth's mom doesn't like it when she talks about losing the role. Maybe she's just devastated that her daughter didn't get the chance to snub Jack from the obvious extra space on the door. So much space on the door. She was just selfish. Coming in at number 8, Eddie Redmayne. Eddie Redmayne is one of Hollywood's most talented actors. I love every film this guy's in because he's just so freaking good. But even though he's an amazing actor most of the time, he's not always the top pick for some casting directors. In an instance where he lost out on a major film role was when he missed out on playing Kylo Ren in Star Wars. At the time of his audition, the character of Kylo Ren was super top secret, so even the people who read for the role had no idea what character they were auditioning for. In an interview, Eddie said that they gave him lines from Pride and Prejudice and asked him to improv being a bad guy. Seems relatively simple, so to speak, but for Eddie it did not come so naturally. Eddie ended up reading the lines with a bunch of different and crazy voices to get into the evil character they were asking for, and even tried his hand at the famous Darth Vader breathing. But in the end, the casting directors weren't all too impressed with the audition, and Eddie lost the role.
Number 7, Ryan Gosling. It's really hard to imagine that the actor got fired from a film set and replaced 2 days before production started, but that is exactly what happened. Ryan Gosling was set to star in Peter Jackson's film adaptation of The Lovely Bones as Susie's father, alongside Saoirse Ronan and Stanley Tucci. It was a very heavy role because his character's daughter is brutally murdered in the beginning of the film, and he has to overcome his immense grief to try and find the perpetrator. So naturally, Gosling believed that his character, Jack Salmon, should have a certain appearance to convey his level of grief, and decided to gain weight for the role. But it turns out the filmmakers weren't happy when he put on 60 pounds. He explained his vision in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter. Quote, "We had a different idea of how the character should look. I really believed he should be 210 pounds. He even went as far as drinking melted Haagen-Dazs ice cream to prepare for the role and was completely dedicated to nailing the part. In the end, when Gosling showed up on set, he was pretty much dropped from the film and replaced 2 days before production by none other than Mark Wahlberg."
In at 6, Matt Damon. Seems like Matt Damon has lost out on quite a few major roles in the past. He's passed on playing the lead in Daredevil and has even passed on playing Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight. But probably the biggest role that he's missed out on has to be the role of Jake Sully in James Cameron's Avatar. In an interview, the actor revealed that though he thought that the script was great, preparation for his other film, The Bourne Ultimatum, was beginning at the same time as Avatar, so he chose to back out of that role. It was also revealed that he and Jake Gyllenhaal were both considered for the role, but it ultimately ended up going to Sam Worthington in the end. The film ended up grossing $2.7 billion at the box office, and Matt joked that the film would have been even more successful had he been in it. But you snooze, you lose, I guess.
At number 5, we have Crispin Glover and why he never returned for the Back to the Future sequel. Crispin had switched out his story numerous times, but one standing point was the studio not meeting his pay demands. He explained in an AV Club interview how he was offered $150,000 to reprise his George McFly role, but this was far less than what co-stars Tom Wilson and Leah Thompson were working for. In the opinion of Crispin, the producers were trying to force him out and punished him with physically uncomfortable scenes for questioning the script. Crispin claimed he would have experienced whatever discomfort needed if he was being properly compensated. Therefore, when the actor tried his hand at negotiation, the higher-ups apparently lowered the amount even further, to an alleged $25,000 instead. Crispin chalked this up to them not wanting to work with him, yet The Hollywood Reporter featured a slightly different spin, where they spoke about Crispin not liking the ideal script, so he demanded $100 million to take the role back. According to Crispin, though, this alleged fabrication was merely a quote campaign smear tactic that he was supposedly asked to receive the same salary which Michael J. Fox was reigning in at the time.
At number 4, Michael B. Jordan. You know that question that people sometimes ask at like boozy game nights of like, who would you want to play you in a movie about your life? Well, this question actually came up for real when it came to casting for the film Straight Outta Compton, and Dr. Dre requested that Michael B. Jordan play him in the upcoming film. Unfortunately for Dr. Dre, his dreams didn't quite come true though, and also quite unfortunately for Michael, he was unavailable for the part because he was filming the Fantastic Four reboot. Now I'm saying unfortunately because that movie was hot garbage and you cannot convince me otherwise. It would have been better for Michael to have been in Straight Outta Compton just to save himself the humiliation of being in The Unfortunate Four. The NWA biopic was already facing some scrutiny since people thought it was going to fail because of its already small budget, so that's probably why Michael didn't just drop the Fantastic Four since they thought it would do well. But oh boy did they have that the wrong way around. Oh, how the tables have turned.
Number 3, Stuart Townsend. Back in 2000, the Irish actor was a rising star with the kind of buzz that comes from having raw talent and a relationship with Charlize Theron. So it made sense that Stuart Townsend would land a breakout role in one of the most acclaimed and successful movie trilogies of all time, Lord of the Rings. At 27 years old, Townsend nabbed the part of Aragorn, the future king of Gondor, and went through months of rigorous training just to be fired one day before filming was due to commence. It was director Peter Jackson who quickly decided that the actor was far too young to pull off the character, and Townsend was replaced by Viggo Mortensen, who is 14 years his senior. Now, the Lord of the Rings trilogy itself was always a monumental undertaking and a huge gamble for Jackson, so with all the moving parts to consider, the decision obviously paid off in the end, as the film might not have been so successful if one of the key roles hadn't been replaced. But of course, it would have been a major setback for Townsend, considering how much he put into what would have been the role of a lifetime for him, especially considering that he hasn't been able to obtain such a big part in a franchise since.
In at number 2, Will Smith. Keanu Reeves is probably best known for his starring role in The Matrix, but there was a moment in production where Keanu may not have seen his time in the spotlight because the role was going to be given to someone else, and this someone else was Will Smith. Will Smith already had the cool, mysterious guy who wears glasses all the time look down pat because of his time in Men in Black, but fortunately for Keanu, Will Smith backed out of the role. Now, years later, when asked about his regrets about turning down the role, Will says he has no hard feelings about it, saying, quote, "I watched Keanu's performance and very rarely do I say this, but I would have messed it up. At that point, I wasn't smart enough as an actor to let the movie be," end quote. I mean, Will was already so successful, so not taking on the role from The Matrix really didn't stunt his career anyway. Finally, at number 1, Selena Gomez. Camp Rock is the film that put Demi Lovato on the map. It's the Disney Channel original movie that put her career into hyperdrive, but that almost didn't happen. Selena Gomez was actually Disney's first choice to play the lead in the film, but because she wasn't ready to take that next step in her career, she turned it down and the part went to Demi instead. Selena was just coming from the rise of Wizards of Waverly Place and was strictly about acting, so she wasn't quite ready to begin her singing career, and she would have had to do so in order to play the part in Camp Rock. But can you imagine if Selena had actually gotten that part? I feel like Demi's quirkiness in the role would have been lost to Selena's more badass energy, but who knows.